The sound wasn't a thud. It was a wet crunch. I stood in the hallway of my father's estate, dressed in the only suit I owned, staring down at my right hand. My drawing hand. It was pinned between the heavy oak door and the frame. My father, Richard, didn't flinch. He didn't gasp. He just leaned his weight harder against the wood, trapping my fingers in a vice of agony. "You are not going to that interview, Grace," he said, his voice flat and bored. "Claire needs a ride to her gala fitting. Priorities." When I tried to pull my hand back, a sharp, white-hot bolt of pain shot up my arm. He looked at my swollen, purpling knuckles and shrugged. "Well, it is not like you can draw now anyway. Get the car keys. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community." I didn't scream. That was the first victory. My brain was screaming, a high-pitched siren of shock and adrenaline, but I clamped my jaw shut so hard my teeth ached. I looked at Richard, at the man who was supposed to protect me, and I saw the glint of anticipation in his eyes. He was waiting for the tears. He was waiting for the begging, the bargaining, the submission. He wanted the emotional fuel that he had been harvesting for me for 26 years. So I gave him nothing. I employed a strategy one had perfected since I was 12 years old. I call it the obsidian wall. It is not passivity. It is an active, aggressive refusal to engage. You turn your face into smooth, black stone. You let their rage, their violence, and their bait slide right off the surface. You do not absorb it. You do not reflect it. You simply exist, impenetrable and cold. Stepping back, I cradled my mangled hand against my chest. I didn't say a word. I turned around and walked away. I heard him sputter behind me, confused by the silence. "Where are you going?" he shouted. "The car is in the driveway." I kept walking. I went into the downstairs powder room and locked the door. Only then did I let out a single, sharp exhale. The pain was a living thing now, a hot, rhythmic throbbing that synced perfectly with my heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. I looked in the mirror. My face was pale, but my eyes were clear. I wasn't a victim in that moment. I was a medic in a war zone. I opened the cabinet. I found athletic tape and a couple of popsicle sticks from a craft box Claire had abandoned years ago. I didn't have time for a hospital. I didn't have time for x-rays. I had an interview in 45 minutes that would determine whether I lived or died. I aligned my ring finger and pinky, grit my teeth, and taped them together tight. The pressure made black spots dance in my vision, but I focused on the pain. I used it. I let it sharpen me. I splashed cold water on my face, straightened my blazer, and climbed out the bathroom window into the garden. I didn't take the car. That was his property, his leverage. I walked 3 miles to the bus stop, my right hand tucked into my pocket, throbbing against my hip. As the bus rattled toward the city center, the skyline of the city rose up to meet me, clean and sharp against the gray sky. Richard thought he was the architect of this family. He thought he was the visionary. But that was the biggest lie of all. For the last 3 years, Richard hadn't drawn a single line. He hadn't opened a CAD file. He hadn't calculated a load-bearing wall or a wind shear coefficient. I did. I was the ghost architect. Every award he had accepted in the last 36 months, every lucrative contract that kept the lights on in that mausoleum of a house, every compliment he fished for at the country club, it was all me. I worked from the shadows, correcting his mistakes, redrawing his outdated plans, and saving him from lawsuits he didn't even know he was courting. He thought I was his assistant. He thought I was his property. He didn't realize I was the oxygen tank keeping his drowning career alive. And he definitely didn't realize that I had been preparing for this day. I patted my laptop bag with my good hand. Inside, hidden in an encrypted partition, was a hard drive. It contained every original file, every timestamped draft, and every email communication for every project I had ever touched. He thought he broke my hand to stop me. He didn't understand that you don't need hands to destroy a house of cards. You just need to pull out the right card. And I was holding it. I got off the bus, looked up at the glass tower of the firm I was interviewing with, and walked through the revolving doors. I was done being a ghost. Today, I was going to be real. I sat in the glass-walled conference room, the city of Seattle spread out below me like a circuit board. My right hand was a throbbing, useless weight in my lap, hidden beneath the table. When the senior partner asked me to sketch a solution for the cantilever issue on the waterfront project, I didn't hesitate. I picked up the stylus with my left hand. It was clumsy, shaky, but my mind was sharp. I talked them through the load distribution, the material stress points, the aesthetic flow. I didn't need to draw perfect lines. I needed to show them I understood the physics better than anyone else in the room. And I did. For 45 minutes, I wasn't Richard's disappointment. I was an architect. I walked out of that building floating. The pain in my hand felt distant, like white noise. I had done it. I had proven that I existed outside of my father's shadow. I stood on the sidewalk, breathing in the cold air, and for the first time in years, I let myself imagine a future that didn't involve correcting Richard's mistakes at 3 in the morning. I pulled out my phone to check the bus schedule. That was when the avalanche hit. The screen was full of notifications. First, the text from Claire. Dad is on the warpath. You ruined my fitting. He's screaming at Mom. I hope you're happy, you selfish brat. I swiped them away. Claire's tantrums were background radiation, annoying, but not lethal. Then I saw the email. It was from the licensing board. Subject: Notice of ethical review. My stomach dropped through the floor. A second later, a voicemail popped up from the hiring manager I had just shaken hands with. Her voice was cold, formal. Grace, we've received some disturbing information regarding your employment history. We need to pause your application pending an internal review. Please do not contact the office. I stood frozen on the busy street corner. He hadn't just grounded me. He hadn't just yelled. Richard had called the senior partner his old golf buddy. He had accused me of being a corporate spy. He told them I had stolen proprietary files, that I was selling trade secrets, that I was dangerous. He labeled me a thief to the very people who held the keys to my freedom. In psychology, there is a concept called the extinction burst. It happens when a manipulator realizes they are losing control over their subject. When the rat stops pressing the lever for the pellet, the machine doesn't just stop, it goes haywire. When a narcissist feels their supply pulling away, they don't negotiate. They escalate. They don't just want to win. They want to annihilate the threat. Richard realized that if I left, his facade would crumble. Without me, he was just an empty suit with a drinking problem and a failing firm. So he decided that if he couldn't own me, he would destroy me. He wasn't trying to teach me a lesson. He was trying to burn the school down with me inside it. He wanted to make me unemployable, to sever my lifelines so completely that I would have no choice but to crawl back to his house, beg for forgiveness, and spend the rest of my life fixing his blueprints in the dark. I looked at the reflection of the glass tower, where I had just felt so powerful. That future was gone, snatched away in a 5-minute phone call between two old men who thought they owned the world. But as I stood there, the shock faded, replaced by that same cold, hungry clarity. He had made a fatal error. He thought he was destroying a helpless girl. He forgot that I was the one who built his reputation. And I knew exactly where the structural weaknesses were. I didn't go back to the apartment. I didn't go to the police station. I went to a grimy, fluorescent-lit coffee shop on the edge of the industrial district, the kind of place where nobody asks why you're icing your hand with a bag of frozen peas wrapped in a napkin. I sat in the back booth, watching the condensation drip down the plastic bag, turning the cheap laminate table slick. My phone was still buzzing with notifications, emails from the board, texts from Claire demanding to know why I ruined her life, missed calls from my mother. I turned it off. I didn't need noise. I needed a scalpel. I walked over to the payphone near the restrooms, a relic I hadn't used in a decade, and dialed a number from memory. Alexandra, I said when she picked up. I need you to meet me. Bring your laptop. And bring your login key. Alexandra arrived 20 minutes later. We had gone to architecture school together, but while I disappeared into the shadow of my father's firm, she had pivoted to corporate compliance at one of the city's largest development groups. She didn't hug me. She didn't ask if I was okay. She took one look at my taped fingers, the bruise blooming on my wrist and the dark circles under my eyes, and she simply sat down and opened her MacBook. "What did he do?" she asked. Her voice was low, professional. It was the only language we both spoke fluently now. "He called the senior partner," I said, my voice steady. "He accused me of intellectual property theft. He's trying to blacklist me." Alexandra stopped typing. She looked up, her eyes narrowing behind her glasses. "That's a career ender, Grace. If that flag stays on your file, you won't even get hired to design a garden shed. We need a lawyer. I know a guy who handles defamation." "No," I said. "A lawyer takes months. A lawyer is defensive. I don't want to defend myself against a lie. I want to expose the truth that makes the lie impossible." I leaned forward, ignoring the throb in my hand. "I don't want to sue my father. I want to audit the principal architect." The shift in language was subtle, but it changed the temperature in the booth. I wasn't talking about Dad anymore. I wasn't talking about the man who taught me to ride a bike or the man who slammed a door on my fingers. I was talking about Richard, the vendor, the entity, the liability. He's currently holding a $300,000 contract with the city for the Riverfront Plaza renovation. I continued. "Your firm is the compliance overseer for that project, right?" Alexandra nodded slowly. "Yes. We manage the vendor integrity reviews." "Trigger one," I said. She hesitated. "Grace, you know I can't just audit a vendor because of a family spat. I need cause. I need a discrepancy." "Here is your discrepancy," I said, pulling my flash drive out of my pocket with my left hand. "For the last 3 years, Richard has billed the city 4 senior architect hours. He bills at a rate of $300 an hour. He claims those hours were spent drafting, modeling, and calculating load bearings. But Richard hasn't opened AutoCAD since 2019. He doesn't even know his password." I slid the drive across the table. Every single one of those hours was worked by an unpaid intern. Me. Alexandra stared at the drive. She understood the implication immediately. It wasn't just about credit. It was about billing fraud. If Richard charged the city for expert-level work performed by a licensed principal, but the work was actually done by an unlicensed assistant, he wasn't paying. He wasn't just a bad boss. He was stealing taxpayer money. That is wire fraud. That is grand larceny. "He accused me of stealing his IP," I whispered, a cold smile touching my lips. "But if he claims that work is his to keep the contract, he admits to the billing hours. If he admits I did the work to avoid the fraud charge, he admits he lied to the licensing board about me stealing it. He trapped himself, Alex. He built a wall to keep me in, but he forgot to put in a door for himself." Alexandra plugged in the drive. She pulled up the metadata on the first file. Author, Grace. Last modified, 3 a.m. She looked at the billing invoice from Richard's firm for the same date. Principal review, 3 a.m. "He's dead," Alexandra said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "I'm flagging this for a level 5 integrity violation. The system freezes his payments automatically in 2 hours." She looked at me, her face grim but impressed. "You know this is going to burn everything down, right? The firm, the house, his reputation. There is no coming back from a federal audit." I looked down at my broken hand. I thought about the sound of the crunch. I thought about the years of being invisible, of being the good daughter, who kept the secrets. "Burn it," I said. "Burn it all the way to the ground." The notification came through at 7:45 p.m. I was sitting on the floor of Alexandra's guest room, my back against the wall, staring at the screen of a burner phone I'd bought an hour ago. My old phone was turned off, buried in the bottom of my bag to silence the barrage of abuse. Alexandra poked her head in, holding her own phone up. "It's done," she said, her voice devoid of triumph, just heavy with finality. "The city comptroller just issued a stop work order on the Riverfront project. They emailed the termination notice to Richard's firm 5 minutes ago. Level 5 violation. His license is suspended pending a federal inquiry." I looked at the clock. The sorority gala started at 7:30. Richard would be there right now, standing in the ballroom of the country club, holding a glass of scotch, waiting for people to congratulate him on being the father of the debutante. He would be surrounded by the very council members who just authorized the destruction of his career. I closed my eyes and let myself imagine it. The buzz in his pocket, the casual glance at the screen, the blood draining from his face. The moment the room didn't change, but his place in it vanished. He wouldn't scream there. He cared too much about appearances. He would walk out, stiff and pale, leaving Claire standing alone in her overpriced gown, wondering why her father was abandoning her big moment. 30 minutes later, the violence arrived. It started with the sound of a car screeching into the parking lot outside. Then, heavy, chaotic footsteps thundering up the stairs. Alexandra lived in a secure building, but Richard had tailgated someone in. He knew where she lived. He dropped me off here for study sessions a lifetime ago. The pounding on the door wasn't a knock. It was an assault. The wood shuddered in the frame. Grace. Open this door. I know you're in there. His voice was unrecognizable, a wet, ragged roar. It wasn't the voice of the composed patriarch who crushed hands in hallways. It was the voice of a cornered animal. Alexandra moved to call the police, but I shook my head. Wait, I whispered. I needed to finish this. I walked to the door. I didn't open it. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood, listening to his heavy breathing on the other side. You ruined it, he screamed, and I heard the dull thud of his fist hitting the door again. They served me at the club, Grace. The comptroller served me in front of the mayor. Do you have any idea what you've done? You burned the family name to the ground. No, Richard, I said, my voice calm, carrying clearly through the wood. I didn't burn it. I just turned on the lights. I will sue you, he shrieked. I will tell them you're insane. I'll tell them you hacked the system. The metadata is time-stamped, I replied. And the IP logs show the upload location. It came from my laptop, Richard. The one you never bought me. The one I paid for. There was a silence then, heavy and terrifying. When he spoke again, the rage had curdled into something far more pathetic. Fear. Grace, please. We can fix this. I can make a call. I can say it was a misunderstanding. Just withdraw the complaint. Please. If you don't, they're going to indict me. The phone in my hand buzzed. It wasn't him. It was my mother, Susan. I answered. Grace. Her voice was thin, trembling. Grace, where are you? Dad is gone. He left Claire at the gala. She's hysterical. The police are at the house, Grace. They're seizing the computers. What is happening? Richard committed fraud, Mom, I said. He's been stealing money from the city for 3 years. He's going to prison. No, she sobbed. No, you have to stop this. You have to tell them it's a mistake. We are family, Grace. You cannot do this to your own blood. Think about all the years we raised you. Think about the investment we made in you. You can't just throw us away because of one bad day. I listened to her weeping, and I felt the old hook trying to catch in my throat. The guilt, the obligation, the heavy, suffocating weight of shared DNA. Philosophy calls it the sunk cost fallacy, the irrational urge to keep investing in a losing endeavor simply because you've already paid so much into it. You stay in the bad marriage because of the years you spent. You save the toxic parent because of the childhood they gave you. But people aren't stocks. You don't hold on to them until they rebound. If the investment is killing you, you don't double down. You liquidate. I'm not throwing you away, Mom, I said, my voice steady. I'm cutting my losses. Grace, please. He's your father. He broke my hand, Mom, I said. And you watched. I hung up the phone. On the other side of the door, the screaming had stopped. There was a siren wailing in the distance, getting louder. Richard heard it too. I heard him step back from the door. I heard the jingle of his keys, the frantic shuffling of a man realizing there is nowhere left to run. You don't get to set my life on fire and ask me to save you from the smoke, I said to the closed door. I heard his footsteps retreating, stumbling back down the hall, running from a fate he had drafted for himself, line by crooked line. I turned to Alexandra. You can call them now, I said. Tell them he's running. The dismantling of the House of Sterling was not the tragedy my mother claimed it was. It was a correction. A structural realignment. In the weeks that followed that night at Alexander's apartment, the legal system moved with the slow, crushing weight of a glacier. Richard was indicted on 14 counts of wire fraud and grand larceny. The investigation revealed that he hadn't just stolen my work. He had embezzled construction funds, cut corners on safety materials, and bribed 2 inspectors. The firm was seized. The assets were frozen. The estate, that sprawling monument to his ego where he crushed my hand, was sold at auction to pay the legal fees. I heard a developer bought it. He plans to bulldoze the house and put up affordable condos. I think there is a beautiful poetry in that. Claire stopped posting on social media. It is hard to be an influencer when your last name becomes a synonym for local corruption. She moved in with an aunt in Ohio, far away from the gala circuit. My mother, Susan, sends me emails sometimes. I don't read them. I have a filter set up that sends them directly to a folder I never open. I don't wish them harm. I just don't wish them anything. As for me, the blacklist never happened. 2 days after the news broke, the senior partner at the firm I interviewed with called me personally. He didn't offer me the junior role. He told me that their forensic team had reviewed the flash drive Alexandra submitted. They saw the timestamps. They saw the complexity of the designs I was creating at 3 in the morning while Richard was asleep. They realized they weren't hiring an assistant. They were hiring the engine. They offered me a starting salary of $95,000 and a title I had only ever dreamed of, associate architect. Now I am sitting in my own apartment. It is small. It doesn't have marble floors or oak doors or crystal chandeliers. It smells like coffee and fresh drywall. But the most important thing about this apartment is the lock on the front door. It is mine. I have the only key. My right hand still aches when it rains. The doctors say the stiffness will probably always be there, a permanent reminder of the price of admission to my own life. I flex my fingers. They are scarred, but they work. I pick up my phone and scroll to the contact labeled Dad. I look at it for a long moment. In the past, this name would have triggered a spike of cortisol, a wave of panic, a desperate need to fix whatever was broken. Now I feel nothing. The anger has burned itself out, leaving only a clean, empty space where the fear used to live. I don't block him. Blocking him implies I am afraid he will reach me. Instead, I just hit delete. The contact vanishes. He is just a stranger with a disconnected number. I turn back to my drafting table. I unroll a fresh, crisp sheet of vellum. The paper is white and endless, a field of snow waiting for footprints. I pick up my stylus. My grip is different now, adjusted to accommodate the healing bones, but the line I draw is straight and true. They taught me that love was a transaction, that loyalty was a debt, and that I was worthless without them. I proved that truth is the only currency that matters. You can lie to the world, you can lie to your family, but you cannot lie to the blueprint. The structure either stands or it falls. I move my hand to the bottom right corner of the page, the spot reserved for the creator. For the first time in 26 years, I don't leave it blank for someone else to sign. I write, Grace, lead architect. If you have ever had to build a wall to protect your peace, share this story. You never know who needs to hear that it is okay to walk away.